Hello, this is Tommy DeLeo. For the next hour, I'll be reading from the Friday, August 21st issue of the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Please enjoy. Ugh. Film brings focus on other revolutionaries. Alex Nussbaum, NorthJersey.com, USA Today Network. It's a part of our revolutionary history that few Americans know. 250 years ago, hundreds of enslaved black men and women joined the fight on either side of the war as British and colonial armies opened their ranks in exchange for promises of freedom. In New Jersey, their memory has been kept alive by the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, which says it is the nation's only black Revolutionary War reenactors unit. As reenactors, they seem really good at engaging people. People seem really excited to see them. In a year when our newsroom has been telling dozens of America's founding stories, photo and video journalist Michael Crass knew the 1st Rhode Island had to be part of that chronicling. Carlos, a Ramapo College graduate who joined the Record and NorthJersey.com 18 years ago, spent months interviewing and recording the Battle of Reenactors, and when you're trying to avoid a fire. Alex Nussbaum sat down with Crass to discuss how he made his film. The conversation has been edited for space and clarity. Here are the questions and answers. Question: tell us about the original 1st Rhode Island Regiment and the history these reenactors are trying to keep alive. Answer: during the Revolution, the 1st Rhode Island Regiment was unique because it was predominantly composed of black and indigenous soldiers. According to Kevin Chapman, a historical interpreter with the 1st Rhode Island Regiment reactors, George Washington's army needed men. Rhode Island had a significant slave population, so it was proposed that if slave owners could be convinced to free some of their slaves, and if the slaves were willing, they could serve. That's the unit that the 1st Rhode Island Regiment's reenactors portray. They also portray other soldiers in Washington's army, British soldiers, and the role of women at the time. Chapman said that at that time, 90% of black people in the colonies were enslaved. Their participation largely was based on who offered freedom, for the best opportunity for freedom. That could be the British. That could be the Continentals. According to Chapman, the British had more black soldiers serving than the Continentals at the time. Did these soldiers serve in New Jersey as well? They were at the Battle of Monmouth. I was at the reenactment for the video and other battles, I believe. Tell me how this project came about. Where did the idea come from? Basically, for the 250th, we were doing lots and lots of stories. I was trying to find that something that I hadn't seen reported on much or hadn't seen much coverage of. When I saw that this reenactment group had portrayed black and indigenous soldiers as was from New Jersey, it seemed like a great story. What motivates these reenactors? I met several reenactors, but I interviewed 3 people. Something they have in common is portraying black people who served during the Revolution. Many people don't know that was a thing. Most people don't know that history, and for the most part, that history hasn't really been depicted or discussed. Steve Thomas, one of the people I interviewed, said that when he was a kid, he went to Old Barracks Museum on a school trip. He saw a musket demonstration and thought it was really cool. Well, he said that it changed his life, but none of the reenactors was black. Now he likes that he can show people that all the black people were part of the Revolution. Leslie Bramlett, another one of the other people I interviewed, said that portraying people from the past as an incredible responsibility and an honor. They're all coming from slightly different angles, but the overarching idea is that people don't know about this, and it's nice to give people the full picture. When were you out in the field with them, and how were they greeted by the public? In general, people were very interested to see and talk to them, see them and talk to them. As reenactors, they seemed really good at engaging people. People seemed excited to see them. They would ask for selfies and talk to them. I think a lot of people going to these reenactments are looking for historical information they may not have known before, or they just want to learn more about it. Whether they meet when they meet these reenactors and they're portraying people they were not aware of, I think that they're just really happy to see them. People seem really open to learning about this chapter of history. They're great at what they do, so I think people were engaged. How much time did you spend on this film? What challenges did you face? There were 3 people, so 3 interviews. I think I went to 3 reenactment events. This was over the course of several months. I probably started in February and would trek with them maybe once or twice a month if I could until the Battle of Monmouth. Up until the Battle of Monmouth, which was June 20th to June 21st. From a technical standpoint, it was a challenge because I had to keep a certain distance from them when they were reenacting, especially the battles. The battles, firing the muskets, all that stuff is very visual and compelling and exciting. It was a lot of stuff I really needed to get because I wanted to show that visual element. But because of safety and because I can't get in people's way, spectators or reenactors, I had to keep a certain distance, usually when I'm working. I'm very close to my subject using a wide lens, and for this I had to use long lenses and a tripod. It was more cumbersome, and it was challenging to come up with shots that looked different because you're kind of shooting from the same spot with the same lens. Luckily, they portrayed a battle and did musket demonstrations more than once, so I was able to learn and figure out where to go and get the best shots. Did anything surprise you? I did not know about the 1st Rhode Island Regiment. I may have had some awareness of black and indigenous people fighting during the Revolution from sparse depictions in popular culture, but I did not learn about that in school or university, so this is basically new information for me. And I found it fascinating. I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I was impressed by how knowledgeable everyone was and how detail-oriented they were. I assumed reenactors would be very specific about the clothing, but they pay a lot of attention to it. The only people that would notice something if something was off would be other reenactors, but that's how realistic they're trying to be. Everything is period correct, including what they wore during the winter months and what during the hottest summer months, which was heavy, uncomfortable, and layered. Their devotion to authenticity was impressive. As someone trying to find interesting things to talk about and show, that was really great. I was also happy with how open they were and how willing they were to let me hang around and spend time with them. For example, with Steve Thomas, I went to a pasture where he keeps horses and we drove around in his truck. It's great when people are willing to let you hang out with them and spend time. They're so devoted to the littlest details. Yeah, that detail could make it seem like they're no fun or like they're overly specific, but they weren't. They were super engaging when they were talking to people, and there was a sense of fun and enjoyment, even though they're depicting a time and place that was terrible in a lot of ways. That was part of our coverage for the 250th anniversary of the United States. Did you find that this story about enslaved people who chose to fight in the war affected the reenactors who thought about the United States, its history, or their sense of patriotism? Kevin Chapman drew parallels to things that are happening now. He sees parallels here. I think he feels that being an American is telling the truth about history and what really happened. I don't know if he feels that's a responsibility, but that's certainly a part of why he does this. Not discussing that history, for whatever reason, is not being truthful. He feels it's important to be truthful, especially now when it seems there are people actively trying to remove or gloss over that history. That seems to like something that has been happening for a long time, which is why a lot of people don't know about this history. One of the people you interviewed, Leslie Brantlett, talked about the role black women played in the revolution. Can you talk about what it means to pass this along this history? For Leslie, she makes her own period-correct clothing. She feels that wearing the clothing of the time helps put her in the headspace of the person she's portraying. She said it's thrilling because when she finds information about a black woman from that time, it's because it's so rare that anyone wrote it down or left something she can research. When she finds something, it's really thrilling, but it's also an emotional ride because depending on the person she's portraying, the circumstances may have been really heavy. One of the people she portrays most often is Hannah Till, an enslaved woman who was one of George Washington's personal cooks. Hannah Till ended up free, and she's one of Leslie's favorite people to portray because after she does, people come up to her and say they didn't know about her. Did you learn anything about how the black people who served in the war were treated afterward? Were they granted the freedom they were even promised? I was told that it depended on the circumstance. Some black soldiers ended up free, others were forced back, and some were forced back into slavery. As far as I know, it depended on the person. What do you hope people will take away from this project? I hope they learn about this time in history because of the 250th. We did so many stories on it, and there's so much coverage in general. I hope people see this as something they haven't been seeing often, or if they have, that they're happy to find more information about it. I hope people watch it, enjoy it, and learn something. These reenactors are really great and super engaging. People seem so happy to see them. I hope people seek them out to learn more if they're interested. Oh boy. New York cyclosporiosis cases top 900 as illnesses increase. Of course it is. Madison Scott, USA New York Connect team, USA Today Network. The New York State Department of Health has reported an additional 41 confirmed cases of cyclosporiosis since August 12th, bringing the total number of cases this year to 973 through August 17th. The New York State Department of Health is posting weekly updates on the confirmed cyclosporiosis cases every Wednesday through the end of August. Here is what to know. As of August 19th, the State Health Department reported more than 939 cyclosporiosis cases from May 1st through August 17th, and 973 cases from January 1st through August 17th. The previous update, released August 12th, reported 898 cyclosporiosis cases from May 1st through August 10th, 932 cases from January 1st to August 10th. The August 5th update reported 833 cases from May 1st through August 3rd, 876 cases from January 1st to August 3rd. The latest figures represent an increase of 41 cases over the past week and an increase of 106 cases over the past 2 weeks. The next update is scheduled for Wednesday, August 26th. Cyclosporiosis cases reported nationwide because of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported 15,716 laboratory-confirmed cases of cyclosporiosis. Wow, that many. He acquired in the United States between May 1st and August 18th. Along with 11,841 additional cases that may require further investigation and analysis. According to the CDC, a total of 1,180 cyclosporiosis cases were reported across the United States between May 1st, 2025 and August 31st, 2025. A week later, CDC reported 13,895 laboratory-confirmed cases nationwide. Federal health officials are investigating multiple cyclospora outbreaks, including a multi-state outbreak linked to recalled iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico, distributed by Taylor Farms. The CDC has stated that this outbreak has contributed significantly to the increase in cyclosporiosis cases for across the country. Thankfully, though, New York is not among those states identified in the outbreak. And once again, for those of you who don't know, here's an explanation on what the heck is cyclosporiosis. Cyclosporiosis is an intestinal illness caused by the microscopic Cyclospora cyanesis. I don't know. People become infected by consuming food or water contaminated with the parasite. In the United States, outbreaks have been linked to fresh produce, including cilantro, basil, salad mixes, snow peas, and raspberries. Unlike many gastrointestinal illnesses, cyclosporiosis is not usually spread directly from person to person. Symptoms can include frequent explosive diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea and vomiting, loss of appetite, weight loss, fatigue, bloating, muscle-ache symptoms typically begin about a week after exposure, but can take up to 2 weeks to develop. Without treatment, the illness can last for weeks or longer. How to reduce your risk? The health officials recommend you do these following steps when handling fresh produce. 1. Wash your hands before and after handling fruits and vegetables. 2. Clean and sanitize cutting boards, knives, and food preparation surfaces. 3. Scrub firm produce, such as melons and cucumbers, with a clean produce brush. 4. Remove bruised or damaged areas of produce. 5. Rinse fresh produce thoroughly under running water before eating. 6. Refrigerate cut, peeled, and recooked vegetables promptly. 7. Cook food when possible, as heat can kill the parasite. When to seek medical care. Cyclosporiosis is not usually life-threatening, but severe diarrhea can cause dehydration, particularly among older adults, young children, and people with weakened immune systems. Anyone experiencing persistent diarrhea, signs of dehydration, severe abdominal pain, or symptoms lasting more than several days should contact a healthcare provider. Now something different. Delay in prime care review called out. Kayla Khan, I don't know. Rochester DNC, USA Today Network. Monroe County lawmakers are calling the decision to delay a state-ordered inquiry into the jail's medical provider a serious failure of legislative oversight by one of their own. State officials directed the Monroe County legislature last year to investigate whether Prime Care Medical should remain fit to provide health care after a review blamed the company for a preventable inmate death. 8 months later, the inquiry has still not begun. You've got to be kidding me. Meanwhile, state jail officials renewed Prime Care's $13.5 million contract just 2 months after the state report. After the DNC reported on the contract earlier this month, several Monroe County legislators said they were never to hold about the state's findings or the order to act. The directive was sent to Monroe County Legislator President Yev Roman, who told the DNC last week she was willing to initiate a fitness inquiry until the Prime Care contract back to the legislator office in early 2028. The original contract authorized the sheriff's office to independently pursue two one-year renewals, but Roman admitted the legislator does not have to wait for that renewal cycle to expire before it can intervene. She said a fitness inquiry will happen, but could not say when. Monroe County lawmakers call for answers around inquiry. August 17th letter, Republican Minority Leader Sean McCabe called on Roman to answer why legislators weren't informed about the report and why she delayed an inquiry. This is not a routine administrative oversight, McCabe wrote. The man died in county custody. The state found his death was preventable and directed the legislator to investigate the fitness of the medical provider involved. That directive was not followed. Legislator Mercedes Vasquez Simmons called the news alarming, and in a Facebook post said she has asked colleagues for an emergency meeting. Legislator Rachel Barnhart is pushing for the legislator to complete the fitness review before the contract comes up for its second optional renewal in January. The state report found prime care medical staff have neglected to pursue crucial tests and basic hospital interventions when 62-year-old Brian Harmon, and who we actually talked about last week, was suffering from a urinary tract infection and obstructed bladder in late September 2023. After 9 days of escalating symptoms, Harmon was found dead in his jail cell. His family has filed a wrongful death claim against Monroe County and Prime Care Medical. U.S. crosses the $40 trillion debt crosses the $40 trillion threshold. David Lauder and Jacob Bogard, Reuters. Total U.S. debt has topped $40 trillion for the first time, the Treasury Department said August 19th, drawing fresh warnings that a fiscal crisis is brewing amidst ballooning costs for social safety net programs and interest payments far outstrip revenues held back by tax cuts. The Treasury's latest daily cash and debt balances statement showed total public debt outstanding at 40.04 but 40.47 trillion dollars on August 18th. A total that includes Treasury secretaries held by the public of $32.266 trillion. There's an intergovernmental debt holdings of $7.782 trillion. The federal government's IOU has now more than doubled in less than a decade, from $19.95 trillion when President Donald Trump was sworn in for the first time in January 2017. Roughly one-third of that increase occurred during the 2 years of frantic government borrowing to fund the COVID-19 pandemic responses undertaken by Trump and former President Joe Biden. While the fiscal policy choices of both presidents combined with the long-running tax and spending imbalances account for the rest. Budget watchdog groups have anticipated crossing the threshold for weeks and issued stark warnings that a full-blown debt crisis can erupt unless lawmakers confront an unsustainable fiscal outlook and raise taxes, cut spending, or both. $40 trillion of debt doesn't solely exist on the government's ledgers. It is felt throughout the economy and finds its way into the pocketbooks of people one way or another, said Maya McGinnis, who's president of the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The more we borrow, the more we exacerbate inflation, squeeze out other priorities in the budget, and leave ourselves vulnerable to emergencies at home and turmoil abroad. McGuinness sent a statement just after the Treasury data was released. She said the $40 trillion figure was reached less than 5 months after debt reached $39 trillion and has quadrupled in less than 20 years after taking until 1981 to reach $1 trillion for the first time. Global creditors may be growing weary with demand from foreign investors holding nearly one-third of the treasuries declining over the past year. Days after a $25 billion auction of 30-year treasury bonds went off at the highest yield since 2021, yields on so-called long bonds on August 18th hit their highest levels in nearly 2 decades as investors demanded greater compensation in the face of hefty U.S. government bond insurance. Yields move inversely to bond prices. On August 19th, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent took a bold step to push long bond yields back down, announcing a doubling of buyback sizes for 10 to 30-year treasuries to at least $4 billion per operation. Higher treasury yields at the longer end tend to push up interest rates for mortgages, car, and the commercial loans. With the mountain of debt showing no signs of abating, Trump on August 19th repeated his frequent demand for lower rates. Asked at the White House whether Americans should worry about bond market volatility, Trump said, "I don't think so at all. I think we have a very powerful country, and we're powering through these ridiculous interest rates. They're ridiculous. Look, when our country is strong, interest rates should go down." The Treasury recently reported the fourth highest monthly deficit in the United States history. $432 billion for July, as tariff refunds turned customs receipts negative for the third month in a row, and outlays for Social Security and Medicare benefits for seniors and continued to grow. The deficit for the first 10 months of the fiscal 2026 has already exceeded the total gap for all of its fiscal 2025, with 2 months to go in the current fiscal year. Trump has largely ignored the dwindling number of fiscal hawks in his Republican Party, championing heavy spending across his 2 terms. Public debt rose by $7.8 trillion during Trump's first term, with more than half of it accumulating during the pandemic response over his last 9 months in office. Since Trump took office a second time in January 2025, the U.S. debt load has increased by $3.8 trillion for a total growth of $11.6 trillion across his 2 terms so far. Our public debt increased by $8.4 trillion during Biden's term, also marked by heavy COVID-19 recovery spending, but driven as well by big ticket outlays for infrastructure investment, clean energy subsidies, and other priorities championed by his Democratic Party. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that the policy choices of Trump and Biden have increased the federal debt trajectory beyond what it would have accumulated under the existing spending statutes when each took office. For instance, Trump's landmark second-term legislative package, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, will add another $4.7 trillion in debt, according to the Congressional Budget Office and the nonpartisan bookkeeper for federal lawmakers. Trump has branded his second presidency as one focused on cost cutting, marked by early federal agency job cuts ordered by the non-governmental Department of Government Efficiency. Much of his spending reductions have targeted so-called discretionary programs, I think. The smallest portion of the federal budget. The United States spends roughly $7 trillion annually, and 60% of it is earmarked into so-called mandatory programs, including payments for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and Veterans Care, that generally grow to keep pace with living costs. Another $1.1 trillion pays the interest on U.S. borrowing, the cost of which rises as the debt pile grows as interest rates climb. The 2025 fiscal year budget marked for the first time debt service costs exceeded Pentagon funding in the first 10 months of the 2026 fiscal year. Interest costs have eclipsed Medicare healthcare outlays to become the second largest line item in the federal budget behind the Social Security pension system. The United States is spending more to fund the retirement and healthcare costs of the baby boom generation, straining the trust funds behind Social Security and Medicare, even as payroll and income tax revenues fall short of covering federal costs. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Search begins for man in the Adirondacks. New York Connecting, USA Today Network. New York State Police are asking for the public's help in locating a 73-year-old Mahopac man who was last seen August 2nd in Indian Lake. Craig K. Streeter of Mahopac was last seen August 2nd at a steward's shop in Indian Lake, according to state police. Streeter was wearing a dark-colored long-sleeve shirt and jeans and left the location in his recreational vehicle, police said. He was last heard from that day. State police were notified of August 17th of a possible missing person in Streeter's RV. He was found at campsite 36 on Moose River Road in the town of Inlet with no known activity. A preliminary investigation determined the RV belonged to Streeter, who is known to travel and camp in remote areas. New York State Forest Rangers were the first to locate Streeter's RV. After they were unable to find him, additional law enforcement agencies were called to assist with the search. The search remains active and involves multiple agencies, according to state police. There are currently no indications of foul play. Police said Streeter's lifestyle was infrequent travel to remote camping areas meant it was not unusual for him to be out of contact for periods of time. Anyone who may have seen Streeter, particularly the people who were camping or traveling near Moose River Road or in other remote camping areas in the region, is asked to contact New York State Police at 518-897-2000. L3 Harris CEO exits after board investigation of conduct. Kayla Khan. L3 Harris Technologies said Chairman and CEO Christopher Kubasik left the company this week after a board investigation into conduct that was reportedly inconsistent with the company's values. The defense contractor has named executive Sam Mehta as its next chief executive. Rochester-based executive Christopher Abley will step into Mehta's former role as president of the Communications and Spectrum Dominance segment. The country announced August 17th. L3 Harris said it entered into a separation statement with Kubasik after learning of behavior in contrast to the company's code of conduct. Kubasik was unrelated to the company's financial reporting, controls, customer relationships, or operational performance, the company said. L3 Harris did not provide any additional details about the conduct. Mehta has over 25 years of experience in the aerospace and defense industry and joined L3 Harris in 2023. Medical bus in fatal crash with dump truck. Victoria Efrelli. One person was killed, and 4 others were seriously injured Wednesday afternoon on August 19th in a 2-vehicle crash involving a dump truck and a medical transport bus in Ontario County, New York. The crash occurred around 1:50 p.m. Wednesday, August 19th at State Route 488 and Fresh Shore Road in Hopewell, according to the Ontario County Sheriff's Office. A medical transport bus was traveling on Fresh Shore Road when it entered the intersection and crossed into the path of a 10-wheeled dump truck, deputies said. The dump truck struck the driver's side of the bus, where passengers are typically seated. The bus was carrying 6 adult passengers. Ontario County's dispatch center received numerous calls reporting the crash and the severity of the injuries. Some callers reported seeing passengers hanging out the windows of the bus. Ontario County Sheriff David Siren said at the scene. The bus sustained heavy damage, while the dump truck sustained relatively minor damage, he said. One bus passenger was killed in the crash, and 4 others suffered serious injuries. The 4 seriously injured passengers were taken to Strong Memorial Hospital for treatment. 3 of those injured passengers were transported by medical helicopter to Strong. Another passenger and the bus driver, a 75-year-old Philip Flepsman, and suffered minor injuries and were taken to the hospital in Ontario County, according to the sheriff's office. The dump truck driver, a 31-year-old Canandaigua man, was not injured. Deputies are investigating the fatal crash. The identities of the passengers involved have not been released Wednesday. Deputies are also working to determine which company operated the medical transport bus. The intersection is known for crashes. The intersection is controlled by stop signs for northbound and southbound traffic on Fresh Shore Road. Deputies said the intersection is, quote, known for crashes, end quote. Specifically for northbound vehicles that are going to cross Route 488. It is a challenge, deputies said at the scene. You have to stop and definitely take an extra second to make sure nobody's coming from either direction. The intersection was closed for roughly 5 hours after the crash. More lawyers face allegations. Emily R. Condon and Zachary Shamil. A woman is accusing a California Democratic lawmaker of sexual assault and harassment, according to her attorneys. The allegations made against Rep. Jimmy Gomez, who denies any wrongdoing, come amid a widespread reckoning that has been rocking Capitol Hill for months, prompting several high-profile resignations and campaign suspensions. They add to an increasing pile of scandals plaguing both Republicans and Democrats as the midterm elections approach. Lawyers for the woman accusing Gomez of misconduct said the probe has highlighted a broad and disturbing pattern. This is just the latest example of brazen sexual misconduct by a member of Congress, they said. Congress must act to rein in its members who seem to believe that preying on young women while working on Capitol Hill is one of the perks of their job. On August 17th, House Ethics Committee announced it was investigating whether Gomez, who has represented a region of Los Angeles since 2017, may have engaged in sexual misconduct in violation of congressional conduct rules, including engaging in inappropriate sexual contact with a House staffer. It is unclear from the allegations whether the woman represented by the attorneys is the House staffer referenced by the committee or when the events reportedly happened. In statements shared with multiple outlets after the panel launched its probe, the congressman admitted to having made some personal mistakes outside his marriage, but emphasized that they were consensual in nature and said nothing he did violated ethics rules. 2 days later, 2 lawyers issued a statement disputing that assertion. Contrary to Representative Gomez's assertion to his statement, his actions were not consensual in nature with respect to our client, wrote the lawyers. Lisa J. Banks and Sarah E. Nesbitt, who said they represented one of the women interviewed by the Ethics Committee. Gomez's office did not respond to USA Today's inquiries about the allegations. The investigation is not proof of any wrongdoing by Gomez, according to Representative Michael Guest, R. Mississippi, the chair of the Ethics Committee. And California Representative Mark Desaulnier, the top Democrat on the panel. The committee notes that the mere fact it is investigating these allegations and publicly disclosing its review does not indicate that any violation has occurred, the pair wrote in a joint news release. Misconduct accusations over the past few months have triggered a slew of ethics investigations and campaign suspensions and even resignations from Congress. The accusations targeted members of both parties from multiple states. In April, Representative Eric Swalwell, D. California, stepped down from Congress when he faced an ethics probe and potential expulsion after 7 women accused him of sexual assault and misconduct, allegations he denied. Representative Tony Gonzalez, R. Texas, resigned within an hour of Swalwell and admitted he had an extramarital affair with a staffer who died by self-immolation after the relationship ended. Weeks after those back-to-back departures, Representative Phyllis McComrick, D. Florida, also resigned amid growing bipartisan scrutiny. A damning ethics investigation and a criminal indictment alleging she stole $5 million in federal disaster relief. Phyllis McComrick derided the Ethics Committee for conducting what she called a witch hunt. Recent ethics scandals in Washington centered on a handful of House Republicans. Several of those lawmakers, the political consequences have been swift. On August 18th, Republican Representative Corey Mills lost his re-election bid in the Florida primary. The Ethics Committee first began an investigation into Mills in November 2025, and the subcommittee said in May that was still looking into him for possibly violating various laws, rules, or other standards of conduct. The panel said it was also reviewing a local police response to a report that Representative Mills had assaulted a woman with whom he was in a relationship. Mills has denied wrongdoing. Other bruising allegations landed in early August when the House Ethics Committee released a report about Representative Chuck Edwards. It's North California. North Carolina. I am so sorry. Conducting that the lawmaker had targeted 2 female staffers, putting them in an untenable position with his conduct. The committee found that any reasonable observer would interpret his pattern of behavior as romantic or sexual in nature. Edwards said he had acted above board, but he dropped his re-election bid that week. Arguably the most high-profile scandal recently has involved a a cameral showdown between members of a ruptured family who serve in the House and Senate. Representative Max Miller, R. Ohio, who is running for re-election, encouraged the Ethics Committee to look into the domestic abuse allegations being levied against him to clear his name from these horrific attacks. The allegations brought by Miller's ex-wife, who is the daughter of Senator Bernie Moreno, R. Ohio. In May, House Speaker Mike Johnson, R. Louisiana, and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, D. New York, launched a bipartisan task force to address sexual harassment and misconduct on Capitol Hill, headed by Representative Kat Kamak, R. Florida, and Rep. Teresa Liga Fernandez, D. New Mexico. No women, regardless of party, title, or position, should ever feel unsafe in her workplace, period, Kamak said in a statement at the time. 2 state parks are tick-borne illness hotspots. Victoria Frelly. Walking in wooded areas throughout New York, guess what? Beware of ticks. Nationally, about 31 million people are bitten by ticks each year, and roughly 476,000 Americans are treated annually for Lyme disease, the most common tick-borne illness, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. World Atlas recently ranked U.S. state parks with the largest tick-borne illness burden. The publication ranked parks based on a documented tick activity, newly published research, and first-hand accounts of the infection. 5 of the top 10 parks are in the Northeast. Pine Grove Furnace State Park in south central Pennsylvania topped the list, followed by 2 in New York. 2 more are in Pennsylvania, and 1 in New Jersey. Green Lake State Park in Onondaga County ranked number 2. The 2,030-acre park is centered around 2 glacial lakes and surrounded by upland forests. A lab team from SUNY Upstate Medical University collected and tested adult deer ticks at the park and confirmed the presence of infected ticks along its nearly 20 miles of trails. Harriman State Park, Rockland and Orange counties, ranked number 3. The park covers more than 48,000 acres and has about 200 miles of hiking trails. Its large deer population and heavy foot traffic contribute to a high number of ticks, according to World Atlas. Ticks in New York. Ticks can be found throughout New York, although ticks remain active during cooler temperatures. The risk of encountering them increases as temperatures rise in spring and summer. Bites from infected ticks can transmit several diseases, including Lyme disease, the most commonly reported tick-borne illness in New York. Over the past 3 years, New York has averaged more than 17,500 new Lyme disease cases annually, with nearly 19,000 cases reported in 2024 alone. Between 2024 and 2025, the number of ticks submitted to the SUNY Center for Vector-Borne Diseases and Vector Biocontainment Laboratories increased by 145. The lab has also seen more Lone Star ticks and dog ticks, which previously were not commonly found in central New York. Deer ticks remain the most prevalent. Every year, the number of people who encounter ticks is increasing, which means people are putting themselves in the way of ticks and they get bitten by them, said Saravanan Thangamani, the lab's director. What is Lyme disease? Lyme disease is a tick-borne illness that is most common in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Upper Midwest, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Common symptoms include fever, headache, fatigue, and a skin rash called erythema migrans. If left untreated, Lyme disease can spread to the joints, heart, and nervous system. Most people recover fully when Lyme disease is diagnosed and treated with appropriate antibiotics. Now, how else is it treated?
Well, people treated with antibiotics during the early stages of Lyme disease typically recover quickly and fully. Common antibiotics used to treat Lyme disease include doxycycline, amoxicillin, and cefuroxime axtil. People with certain neurologic or cardiac complications might require additional treatment. The best approach, however, is preventing tick bites and checking for ticks after spending some time outdoors. How to prevent ticks. New York's Department of Health recommends the following precautions for people who hike, work, or spend time in wooded areas. 1. Wear long pants. 2. Wear long pants, long sleeve shirts, and closed-toed shoes. Keep long hair tied back. Stay on trails whenever possible. Check ticks frequently while outdoors and brush them away before they attach. Perform a full body tick check several times during the day when you again when you return home. Tumble dry clothing on high heat for 10 minutes. And it's to kill ticks on dry clothing after coming indoors. Shower shortly after coming indoors. Check pets thoroughly for ticks after they spend time outdoors. If you find an attached tick, remove it as soon as possible using fine tip tweezers. Grasp the tick close to the skin and pull upward with a steady, even pressure. Dispose of the tick by placing it in a sealed container, wrapping it tightly in tape, placing it in alcohol according to the CDC. After removing the tick, clean the bite area with your hand and your hands with soap and water, rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer. Monitor the bite area for the next 30 days. If you develop a rash like a flu-like symptoms, contact your healthcare provider. All right. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat and Chronicle from the August 21st, 2026 issue on the Democrat Chronicle and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Your reader has been Tommy DeLeo, and thank all of you for listening.